Let's call the September 3rd meeting of the Strongsville School Board to order. George, could you take roll?
Sure. Colonel Evans?
Here.
Mr. Grozen?
Here.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Yes. Here.
Mr. Naso?
Here.
All
Stand for the
present.
Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Allegiance. Okay. So this is the part where we talk about our goals. In every meeting, we're going to restate our goals. We've got student achievement, which is goal number 1, and financial prudence, which is rule number 2. And everything we do in these meetings has to deliver on those 2 goals. We can't deviate, and we know that there's a balance between the 2 goals. One is, we wish we could do everything, but we've got to live within the budget that we have. And I think we're going to see tonight with the presentation on the budget that we're doing just that. And I want to commend George, our new treasurer, for doing an outstanding job on the budget this year and building that up. And that's a big component of financial prudence, is knowing what your budget is and knowing it in detail, line by line, item by item, and what's in there. And all I'll say is that this year we have that. It's built up from the ground up. It's built up by body. It's built up by every expense. And we have comparable data from different periods. That alone is going to be a tool that's going to allow us to do exactly what we've been talking about, and that's demonstrate financial prudence. We've got a really good handle on it this year. I mean, it's still difficult. It's a difficult snake to wrestle down, but it's still, first you got to know what you have to do it. You got to measure it to improve it, and now we've got a really good baseline measurement, and I want to thank George just for all the work. I know he was in here weekend after weekend getting this thing together because it wasn't in the kind of shape that he demands of himself, and he wanted to give this district. So I just want to thank him for that, and we'll move on from there. With that, we go on to public comment. Seeing we have none, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. You're up.
All right. So you kind of touched on it. So today all I have is a discussion item. It's the reviewing the annual budget. So I'll just make my way to the podium.
I like the new logo on the slides.
That's right. Very equestrian.
Very equestrian like. Look at me, they do a brand. Brand George. Make that into a brand George.
All right. So Mr. Naso kind of already touched on it, but in front of you there's a what I prepared, a budget book. You should have it at your desks, and also there's some available for the public, and then tomorrow morning we'll be placing them on our website as well. So kind of just guide you through how to read this budget book quickly is, so this encompasses all of our funds together. It's a comparative data broken down within the general fund by department, compares last year's budget to this year's budget, and in the back it's all the other funds. So as I mentioned, on page 1, it's just a roll-up of just a summary of all the funds together. And then from there, it's broken down by section. From the general fund, and then behind the general fund, it's all the budget centers from the departments to the schools. So starting on page 5 is a general fund summary, and then behind it's all the departments. And then from there, it's the different fund types. The other sections are the different fund types by section. So like the special revenue funds, it's all of our grants, and then behind that, it's our capital projects, the permanent improvement, debt service, and internal service. So I'm not going to go page by page by it, but I just kind of wanted to show you how it was kind of broken up. About the budget process, so I started by developing this book, and this book allowed me to to look at every department, and I also worked with Mrs. Pelko and her staff on the HR side, determining who our employees are, what their salaries are, what benefits they have, and then also reaching out to our benefits consultant to see what our benefits, our projected increases are going to be for this year, and then also preparing the 5-year forecast, which I'll present next month, what our increases are going to be annually. So going into the presentation, the presentation just covers the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the district. It's the dollars we use to operate. As I mentioned, any information on the additional funds could be found in the budget book. So this slide here is just a brief summary where our money comes from. So basically, majority of our funds, 66% of our funds is collected from local taxes. 14% is our state foundation from the state. The other section, 6.5, it's just other miscellaneous revenue. The biggest portion there is the TIF dollars that we're starting to collect from the new construction in the city. And the state of Ohio reimbursement, 13.6. And what that is made up of is the homestead and rollback collections and also the TPP collections. So this year, the TPP is stated to stay the same, but as we mentioned with the governor's line item veto, that will be eliminated. 2.8 million will be eliminated next fiscal year, and then the remaining 800 for a total loss of 3.6 million. A TPP is going to be estimated to be reduced from fiscal year 18 and beyond. So on the next slide, where money goes. So this is kind of just a summary of how our dollars are distributed. So 80% of our budget is for salaries and benefits, and 9% is for purchase services, while 3.3 is for materials and supplies, under 1% for equipment, and then about 5.1% for other funds. And other funds is a combination of any debt that the general fund has, county auditor fees, and then also the community school deduction. It's about $900,000, which represents about $1.4 million, or 1.4% of the general fund budget. So the assumptions that went into making the budget, we closed one elementary building, Zellers. The budget assumes a total of 728 positions. 672 are within the general fund. This year we reduced 24.20 positions. 20.20 are within the general fund. And how we got to that round number, it was we reduced 0.6 FTE at one spot and reduced like another 0.4 at another spot. So that's how it kind of got to that. Well, how do you reduce 0.20? So that's how that math was. And then our healthcare rates were projected to increase by 10%. And then the budget also assumes all union agreements as currently as they're defined right now.
The distinction between general fund, the 24.2 and the, excuse me, excuse me, it's hard to ask a question when you're sneezing. The 24.2 and the 20.
Bless
Holy
you.
mackerel. What are the,
Yeah, it's not good.
that's not good. What's the distinction? If it's not in the general fund, where is it?
So it could have been in the food service fund. I think there was a
Okay.
position or two that we reduced from there. And also on our Idea B, the special ed grant, I think there was a position that was reduced from a supervisor to director that was placed on the general fund.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
So going, the next slide is the budget by category. So salaries.
Excuse me, George.
Oh, sure.
One thing, I think salaries and benefits are now constitute 80%, 80.3% of the budget.
Right.
Several years ago, they constituted closer to 90%.
Over 90.
Right.
It was around 92, 93%.
So I think that's
Yeah.
important to note for the audience that's paying, close attention to this, how much has been reduced in the labor area over the last several years.
Right. Which allows us to spend dollars in other areas for materials and resources that supplement the education of our students. So salaries. So last 2015, the budget was 40.2 million. We actually spent 39.5, and we're projecting the salaries to be 39.7. And on the next slide is kind of the reconciliation of how we got from that we spent 39.5 to next year's going to be 39.7. So as you can see on this slide here, so if you notice the difference in font, where fiscal year 15 is blue, fiscal budget is blue, the actual is red, so that kind of correlates to the chart. And then in between is the math on how we got from the budget and the actual to the fiscal year 16 budget, which is the total on the bottom, which is down here in the green. So the reasons for the changes, so first I'll start with the reductions, or the minuses. So we reduced positions, which saved us about $1.1 million, and that was primarily from the close of Zellers Elementary. We also had separation and retirement savings, which saved us about $600,000. And now what that is employees mainly retiring and then us filling those positions at a lower spot on the salary schedule, new employees coming in. And then the additions, we had our negotiated increases in our from our unions. So we had COLA increases, our step increases, which represent a little over $1 million. And then salaries also increased because of our OPSI SCRS conversion. So when we eliminated the pickup on the SCRS, it was kind of building their salary, so it showed an increase there. While the benefit side went down, so it kind of washed out. So overall, the net adjustment was compared to last year's budget, salaries went down by $500,000, while compared to the actual, they went up $200,000. Next is our benefits.
George, can I ask you to go back 2
Sure.
slides and show the bar graph?
Yeah.
My only question is, with our actual for 2015 at $39.5 million,
Right.
and our budget's $39.7 for 2016,
Right.
aren't we going to realize some savings with the closing of Drake?
Yeah, and this is for this fiscal year that we're in.
Okay.
So next month when I do the 5-year forecast,
Okay.
those savings will be captured in fiscal years 17, 18, and beyond. So this is
Gotcha.
just fiscal year 16.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
Benefits last year was budgeted at 17.6. We spent 16.7 million, and we're estimating to spend again 16.7 million. And how I'm coming up with that is a reconciliation slide. Same way to read it was we reduced positions that saved us about 300,000. The OPSI conversion saved us or reduced benefits by 500,000. From the budget side, claims came in about $1 million better than predicted. So total reductions from the budget was able to reduce 1.8 million, from the actual reduced 900,000, and then adding in the 10% increase that we think we're going to realize. So it's represents about 900,000. So in total from the budget, it's decreasing about 900,000. From the actual, it's kind of staying flat from what we spent with all the changes.
George?
Yes.
Real quick on the 10% predicted healthcare.
Yeah.
How did you arrive at the number?
Arrived at the number. We met with our benefits consultant, and it was estimate that they had given us that the rates he predicted are going to increase by 10% from the each year for the next 5 years, and it was by them looking at our claims coming in, what we're spending, and what they think, what they're estimating compared to.
Moving forward to the 5-year forecast, are you going to use that 10%
Yes.
throughout?
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
That's one of the assumptions. Purchase services, materials and supplies and equipment. Last year we budgeted about 9.9 million. We spent 8.6, and this year the budget's about 10.2. I know it kind of looks like a big increase from the actual, from the budget compared to last year. It's increased 300,000, and to explain the increase from the actual to the budget here on the next slide. So the biggest difference is point you to the line under the additions. The purchase orders carried into fiscal year 16, but not spend 15. So what that was, they had that budget. The dollars were committed, but the bills were not paid in fiscal year 15. They were just carried into fiscal year 16 for those bills to be paid now. So it kind of looks like the money wasn't spent, but it was. It's just a timing issue. So
Essentially, it's an accrual.
yeah.
Right, so you've already committed the dollars.
Right. And since we're on cash basis accounting,
Yeah.
it kind of shows funny. We're on accrual. You
Yeah.
could kind of
Even it out.
Right. The biggest change was the increase in tuition paid to other districts, and that's primarily the community school deduction, or ed choice, or post-secondary options. I estimated the increases by just looking at historical numbers, been increasing about 15% on average annually. And then also the state made changes for the community school deduction. They increased that deduction by $100 per pupil. For the John Peterson Scholarship, the state increased that amount by 30%. And also they changed the post-secondary options, which went from 9th graders to seniors to middle school students to seniors. So we might see more kids taking advantage of that as well.
George, a question on the carryover dollars, the dollars
Yeah.
that made the bar graph drop in actual and going into 16.
Right.
There's nothing in there. It's not like you're getting close to the end of the year. Well, I've got budget dollars. Let's spend them. There's none of that, is there? I mean,
From what I saw, No, a lot of the purchase orders are encumbered at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And
Any
it's for
chance
the
any
whole
of that'll
year.
come
So,
back, that we won't get invoiced for those?
yeah,
those
so
items?
a lot of the stuff. So there were some purchase orders so far that have been able to close that were carried over. That the year finished, they got the invoices in that they needed to get in, and there was some money left on the purchase orders where I was able to close those purchase orders, keep the savings, and then had them create new purchase orders based on the new budget.
So there's a chance that we won't spend that the total encumbered that carried over.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a
a-
chance that if we, you know, by watching that some of that won't be actually spent.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was now I was able to capture back 150,000 of it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
So just closing them out.
Okay.
And what we want to do too at the end of each fiscal year, as the year's starting to get to the end around May, is start meeting with the department heads saying, hey, you have these purchase orders out there. Can we start closing them, or do you anticipate any bills? So we kind of work with them on what orders they still have out there.
Okay.
George, I have a question.
Sure.
On the budget not spent in FY15,
Yeah.
okay, so isn't that a savings?
Yeah, for that year, they didn't spend that budget. The timing of when I was doing this, I didn't want to reduce anyone's budget because a lot of the business started happening in July, and just the timing of when the budget was being built was this 200,000. I just kept the budget the same from last year to this year, so
Okay,
it's kind of
but
just
that potentially could be another
could-
200,000 for
Right,
the
could-
good.
potentially be
Yeah,
savings.
it's possible.
Okay.
Our other funds, last year we budgeted 2.1, we spent about 1.6, and next year we're anticipating to spend about 2.1. And it was the same thing. It was $100,000 with the purchase orders carried into fiscal year 15, and about $400,000 of savings of budget not being spent. And then transfers to other funds. Last year was budgeted 700,000. We actually needed only 300,000. Next year, I'm anticipating 1.5 million, and the primary reason for that is transfer to our termination benefit fund. So a few years ago, a fund was set up to pay our termination benefits from when employees separate, the severance. When that was first set up, a good chunk of money was put in there, and those cash was lasted a few years where we didn't need to replenish it. The amount that we're paying hasn't changed from year to year. It's just we need to replenish that fund. So I plan on doing it annually rather than putting a large amount in there that will last a couple of years. Just doing it annually where it's just consistent from year to year. So in summary, one of the goals that we've mentioned, financial prudence. So district cost-saving efforts now and past history. Since 2009, we're 186 less positions for fiscal year 16 compared to 2009, which is a 20% decline, which keeps up with our decrease in enrollment from that point. For this year, as I mentioned, we reduced 24.20 positions, and they included one principal. We have a principal split at 2 buildings, secretarial staff, instructional personnel, custodians, transportation staff, and food service personnel. Another thing that came out through the meeting with the benefits consultant, he showed me a figure that if we would have been fully insured in 2015, he showed me what our expenses would have looked like versus if we were self-insured. So in 2015 alone, we saved $1.8 million by being self-insured if we were fully insured. That move to self-insurance happened a couple years ago, but they like to have that comparative number out there to show you that whether it makes sense to be self-insured or not. So in our case, we realized a savings of $1.8 million.
That was a nice recommendation by our previous treasurer, Deb. Did a nice job with that.
Also, we've eliminated 6 buildings, repurposed 1 to save resources and maximize educational offerings. As Allen was closed in 2010, Zeller's closed last year, 2015, and Drake will be closed in 2016. And then we'll have the consolidation of our new middle schools in the next school year. And then the last, we're also implementing the Ohio Learning Program to retain students in the district, which we're estimating would save the district about $200,000. And then last, the summary charge. So this is just a summary of the adjustments. So this shows the budget where we started last year, 70.4, and it kind of captures the different budget drivers that cause the budget to fluctuate. So on the one side, I put the additions, and the next half I put the decreases. So we had our negotiated increases, which increased the budget by 1.2 million. The transfers, which increased 800,000. So if no reductions were done, our budget would have increased by 72.4 million, about $2 million increase. But with the reductions that we've made, we were able to reduce our budget from the Zellers closing, retirement savings. We were able to bring it back down to 70.3. So although it looks flat from last year to this year, there were some drivers that caused the budget to increase, and then we were able to take action to have cost savings to keep our costs down.
So this is one of the reasons why when you see when you look at our spending levels from year to year, they look, I mean, you can see we've done a good job of paring them down. I mean, the chart goes like this, but when you think about all of the things that drove that number up, that would have driven it up significantly higher,
Right.
all the steps we've taken to keep it down, there's a lot more that's been done than actually shows if you just look at the year to year. This looks like, oh, same budget. But no, we'd be significantly higher, and we're doing everything we can to keep this thing level with our spending, with our funding, so
Right.
that we try to keep it even. And then, the closing of Zellers wasn't nobody wanted to do that, but look, where we'd be without it. It saved us $1.4 million.
Correct.
So, I mean, these are the kinds of things that we're doing actively to try to manage this budget and to keep this district together. So,
If I could.
nice job.
Thank you.
Cameron, congratulations to you and your leadership team. I mean, we can come up here and come up with ideas about saving money and closing Zellers. That was a hard transition for a lot of parents and a lot of students. Next year with Drake is going to be even tougher. So great job implementing the ideas and that. George, this slide is probably the most accurate, self-explanatory, reasonable summary of what we've done in the past 2 years. And I've been coming to board meetings for over 3 years. Well done with the presentation in this slide.
Thank you.
Great job, both of you guys.
Here, here.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you.
So, that's
And-
it. Roll them off the hook.
And that's all I
Nice
had
job,
on my.
George.
Thank you. That's all I had at my
Outstanding.
treasury report. Next board meeting, we'll take action on the budget. If there's any questions in between, feel free to call, email.
Really.
You know how to get ahold of me.
Yep. I mean, between this and this book, I mean, Richard was just complimenting you on how thorough and what a nice job it is.
So, and I'll just, to throw the compliments in, but, we have business people, we have a CPA, we have business owner, we have a computer geek on the board, and to be able to grab the numbers and to be able to see them concisely, to see the trends. You can't plan unless you know what your foundation is or what your base is. And
Right.
this takes us up even better to an even more stable position, so thank you. Just to be clear, we're going to be voting on the 5-year forecast at the next board meeting.
No, we're gonna be voting on the budget the
On
next
the budget,
meeting.
and
And
then-
then the October 1st meeting, I'll present the 5-year forecast.
And we'll
have a
adopt it at-
discussion, and then we'll vote on it at the second October meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
That brings us to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Carl. Again, phenomenal job, as I've shared with George numerous times. This is tremendous information for us as we move forward. Tremendous information as we move forward, and as we talked about, a part of what George and I are looking at between now and October is not just to be satisfied with this, but to look at how can we continue to proactively take a look at all of our departments, reduce costs, so that we can have a proactive approach to our budget and our 5-year forecast. And so this document is going to greatly help us because we can see every line item of where our dollars are being spent. I have 2 items for discussion for the board this evening. The first is our 2015-16 district goals and strategic plan. What I wanted to give an update as to where we're at in the process, because usually at this time of the year, we share with you the goals, we adopt the goals, and they're in place. But as a new superintendent, I thought it was important to put a little bit longer of a process to truly, even though I've been a part of the district, to truly get a good picture of where we want to go. So what we've done is we've worked with various focus groups starting in June in our district. So starting in June, we had a group of over 100 administrators, teachers, OPSI staff, related services to help take a look at what is important in our district and what's going to be a part of our future plan. And what we've done is we've created what we call Strong Schools 2020. And it's our vision for the future. It's a 5-year strategic plan for our district in terms of our future and our future efforts. So what we've come up with is 5 areas to focus. One of those being community engagement, facilities infrastructure, finances, teaching and learning, and technology. Now, if we stay with our theme of financial prudence, obviously facilities and infrastructure and finances fall under that. And with student achievement, the teaching and learning technology fall under that. And a big piece, which I hope we've seen improvements in already, is that community engagement piece. You know, how are we building a strong partnership between our district and our city? What we've done is we've developed some draft ideas of objectives, some action steps, and what we'll be doing next week, I'll be sharing with Dawn to announce we will have a special meeting, a board retreat that will be held on Saturday, September 12th. And at that time, we will begin to solidify our 2015-16 district goals and our strategic plan for the district. So just wanted to update the board where we're at. I will send you an updated draft so you could review it prior to our retreat. And then at our retreat, we can have a quality discussion of where we see the district going and start to chart year 1 of our 5-year plan. Questions on that?
We never retreat, we advance.
That's right. We will have a board advance meeting.
A board advance
Yeah.
meeting, there's no retreat. Excellent.
All right, with that, thank you for getting the presentation going. Wanted to share with you an update. Over the past month, Galen from Melomel Communications and myself have been working to put together, as a part of that community engagement focus, a communications update and a communications plan moving forward. So, yeah, thank you, Mark. Oh, this, you know what, this is an old one. It's not going to reach that far. So, keep on going, Mark. The first piece of it is we looked at what are recurring communication strategies that we want to put in place into the district. So what I broke it down is to some strategies that are a part of the plan that we're currently implementing. So the first thing we've got is for parents and staff in the district, they are now getting Friday e-updates from, first of all, Strongsville City School Happening. So that's more the district newsletter format. It talks about what's happening in the district, what's happening with our alumni, you know, what's happening in curriculum, in construction. On the off weeks of that, I send a more personalized update to our parents about what's going on in the district. So every Friday, parents are getting an email communication of what's happening in the district. The other, no, not yet. Sorry. That's okay. So the other thing that we've started, we've got a couple episodes, I don't know if episodes is the right word, a couple snippets done.
How many
but,
do you need for syndication?
Right. So we started 60 Seconds with the Superintendent, which is, as I told the PTA Council this morning, it's always a bad idea to create a title before you start something because I haven't hit the 60-second mark yet. But one of the things we're trying to do, and we'll evolve that to be, is looking at the idea of weekly updates to communicate a message that is best shown visually rather than by a written newsletter. And so that's just, it is just that, a short, brief update of what's happening in the district for that period of time. We've also instituted internally, and externally, principals are now communicating, some of them have in the past, but it's standard across the board. All principals are sending weekly updates to their parents. So their parents are getting updates of what's happening in the district, they're getting updates of what's happening in the building so they could stay informed. Last year we started and will continue district newsletters and district video newsletters that will happen on a quarterly basis, and those will be opposite of each other. And then those two I forgot to delete at the bottom, so they're on another slide there, but not yet, Mark. For internal communication, what we started is we call it the Superintendent Scoop, but we have a monthly newsletter that's just internal to staff, so they know the initiatives and the work that's happening in the district, as well as principals are communicating weekly to their staff. Now, let's click. All right, so some of the things that are still being developed, the two things, we are going to have a State of the Schools address this year. That'll be later in the fall, early winter, just to give a formal update of where we are in terms of our district plan and initiatives. And also what we're looking to start in the summer, fall of the 2016-17 school year is an annual report or a report to the community, looking at where our finances are at, where our accomplishments are at, and where our program is at. More of a literature piece that will start. There's nothing of all the internal communication right now with the plan. We're where we need to be. Okay, so that's kind of the recurring communication. Another part of the plan was building that superintendent community connection and looking at opportunities for that. Now we're cooking, Mark. So once we get the strategic plan in a good draft, what we're looking at doing is scheduling times for community members to meet with me, to have some one-on-one discussion and different opportunities to do that, whether it's at the building, whether it's here, whether it's out in the community, as well as to visit various community groups, as we talked about, to share information, to share our initiatives, to share our vision, and some of those groups are there. I already have, I wasn't able to attend the boosters this month, but I have scheduled all of the PTA meetings through September, October, November. I'll be visiting all the PTAs to introduce myself and work with those buildings there. So those are some of the things, you know, I feel I am, but also want to show that I'm approachable and accountable, and people can have contact with me so they can hear what we're doing as a district. Some of the things that we've got to look at, opportunities that we've got to determine what we're going to do with. Some of the other ideas that we came up with, again, is this idea of a district dialogue. Again, another where you can visit with me during various locations, whether in the community or whether at schools. There's always the opportunity of a town hall meeting. The idea of a student advisory council where they would meet with me to talk about issues that directly affect our students and their education experience. We actually are, in the next newsletter, going to start an Ask the Superintendent. That will become kind of a focus point for future newsletters or videos, as well as the idea of restarting a business advisory committee to look at having business professionals in our community look at our approaches and provide feedback. Obviously, our end result and our end goal is always producing and providing students that are career and college ready. And having, I know as Bob and Chris here are from Polaris, that's a very important component of their work, is the connection to the community and the business community, something that we're looking at exploring as well. In terms of online social media and television communication, some of the ideas that we are that are currently implemented is we do have a YouTube channel. Board meetings are on the YouTube channel. Our video newsletters are there, my 60-second with the superintendent up there. So we are looking to further build that channel, and we have an active district Facebook, Twitter. I have taken over the Twitter feed for the district, and we have that in place as well. Things that are being developed, the website has been fully transitioned. The high school was the last piece. It was transitioned yesterday, but that's still being developed in terms of getting the content where it needs to be. Cable television, Vicki Turner, overseeing our technology department, is actually in the ground level of starting to bring back our student-generated television show. We used to be called SCS TV. We're going to update the name, but the idea being having our students back in front of the camera reporting on what's going on in the district. And we hope to, at least, it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be fancy, but at least get some episodes going this school year. The other thing, and the last thing we're looking to do, is create a video warehouse for our district, and kind of how do you register a student in Strongsville? How do you pay your fees online in Strongsville? How do I find out about the college application process? How do I find out about scholarship opportunities? So that is something that we're going to begin incrementally to develop and have as a resource for our families. And then the last thing is communication surveys. The communications is obviously an evolving topic, and we always want to make sure that we are meeting the communication needs of the community we represent and serve. So my suggestion, or at least to think about at this point in time, as Galen and I have talked about this, is, you know, we've got a lot of heavy lifting to do. We've done a lot already, but to do over the next remaining months of the school year. But once we start to get these items in place, there's two things that that we are recommending to take a look at. The first is more informal surveys through social media to gauge perceptions, progress of the community in terms of our work over time. The other piece of it is a statistically accurate poll. Obviously, the first one is free. The second one has a price attached to it. But those, obviously are statistically reliable. We'll do, a third party would conduct a survey, provide in-depth quantitative community research, again, to get a true pulse of how the community is looking at our decision-making and the priorities and the work that we're doing as a district. So what I've hoped to give you up to this point is our communications package and plan as a whole, things that we have implemented already as we've developed it, and items that we are still in development, and now I open it up for any feedback or questions you may have.
I do. Cameron, I think that's great, a very good initiative. I would also suggest that what I saw in the first part of that was that there be some channels for feedback from our staff. The principal looked pretty top down in the first portion of that. I think it's important that even if it's anonymous, that we get continuous feedback from the staff as well to understand their concerns and areas of interest. And so that would be a good thing. And the other thing I tell you is I think it would be great if we can get the high school kids involved or whatever, even get some of them here for our show and, to ask questions and in topics of interest for the students of how this operates, because it's probably good business experience for them.
Absolutely. Thank you.
My only comment is, as a taxpayer, one of the reasons why I'm from a taxpayer now a board member was because of the communication gap, especially when Allen closed and everything else. I think that with the leadership of John Krapinski, I think that communication definitely took some strides forward. And I think the reason why you're able to close a school building like Zellers, have a plan to close down Drake, there isn't massive anarchy. We were able to get a bond passed the first time out by 16 votes and gas for $82 million was because we started to communicate. To take it this far, Cameron, was never going to happen unless someone from a leadership internal position was going to do it. So it's a big list. Congratulations on the idea. Hopefully we can implement most of it. I would like to say my only thing is I like the town hall meetings. When we went for the bond, we went for the school closures, it gave people the opportunity to come walk and look at you face to face. It's a lot easier for someone in the public to rant and rave when they're secure behind a computer screen. But when someone actually comes in front of you, I think that's an opportunity for you to connect with those people, just a suggestion. Yeah. And then the YouTube videos of this meeting on YouTube, bad idea. I mean, me on YouTube is, and the way I talk sometimes about certain people, okay.
Well, it has 14 hits, a lot of them, 14 to 17 hits, so you're okay.
So,
14.
but great job, Cameron.
Yeah. Laughing at George.
And Jeremy goes home and looks at it again.
All right, well, I appreciate if there's any feedback or thoughts from the board.
The only thing I'd add to that is we all got an email today, or yesterday, I think, it was on testing. And somebody asked a question about the park test. And I'm not going into that part of it, but in the memo, in the email, they were asking questions about, they were confused. But the one thing they did do was compliment us on the amount of information that was coming out. And it was like kind of in the middle, bottom third of the email that we got, because it was kind of a long email. But she was very appreciative of all the information that was coming out.
Good.
And she made the point, she goes, high school students aren't the best communicators with their parents. So that feedback loop wasn't really getting filled up. But the information we're putting out is really doing well. And I'm really thrilled with the communication plan. It's look like it's morphing to the point where we can start thinking about the plan.
Yeah.
And how we're gonna move forward with it. But I'm really impressed with everything that's coming out and the 60 seconds. The only other thing that there's all these different things for the superintendent. I'm thinking that the dunk tank with the superintendent would be an outstanding communication tool.
I think we'll put that on the ideas to discuss at a later time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And if the board members or anyone from the community has any feedback or suggestions, as I said, after the first 60 seconds video, I got a lot of feedback. So it was always good. We made improvements. So anything we can do that best meets the need of our community, let us know. And with that, I'm going to ask Mark Donnelly to share his business service report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryba. Tonight under Business Services, we only have one item for your consideration. It's the renewal of our annual copier and printer maintenance agreement. Due to some shopping around and some pencil sharpening on the part of our vendors, the maintenance agreement this year has much lower rates. If you read the resolution, you see that last year we were right around the $93,000 range. If the rates come in about the same volume, we should be $70,000 this year, maybe a little bit less. So there's some significant savings we're able to find. The agreement that we're going to approve tonight has an option if both parties agree for a one-year extension as well. So this could benefit for a couple of years.
Fixed price?
It's a price per copy.
What
So
I mean, fixed price, 2 years? Same prices?
It's not fixed for 2 years. It's an agreement for 1 year with an option if both parties agree for a second year.
But at what cost?
Same exact rates, yes.
That's what I'm
The
asking.
same exact rate per copy, yes.
Okay.
And that's it from Business Services tonight.
If, I have a question. It says on the resolution, or near the copier maintenance agreement, it says the price is $92,900.
That
Is
was
it-
last year for comparison numbers.
Okay, all right.
That's just because of the varying volume of prints, whether they do a lot at the high school or little, the volume could change. But
Okay.
It's really based on a
So if we
click
did the same
price.
volume, it'd be $70,000?
Yes.
Okay,
22,000 less.
nice. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Richard?
Mark, I wanted to compliment you that we were able to do this. If it's not standard operating procedure, it should be standard operating procedure with all our contracts on a regular basis to throw them up and make sure they stick and make sure they're market competitive. The one thing that's nice about this contract, it is per click, and so hopefully we can start to educate all our users and be judicious on when printing. You know, you don't want to be so judicious that you're wasting time, but at the same time, if we can generate a PDF and email it, we don't necessarily need to print all those copies.
And I
So-
think our staff and our teaching staff, as well as the students, as we shift to more and more Google kinds of documents and Google sharing of documents, there is less printing. I just don't know what that volume is going to be.
Right, it's just something that we all need to be aware of, and, you know, in my world, I look at it as kind of a lagging indicator. When your paper copies start to go down, you know that the adoption of the technology is going up.
Correct.
But thank you.
George, make sure that savings ends up on our financial prudence slide.
Thank you, Mark. At this time, I'd like to have Jenny Pelko give a report for Human Resources. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Ryba. I have 2 items for your consideration under Human Resources this evening. We have the resignation of certificated long-term substitute Christine Blakely, and then we also have under number 2 the appointment of Courtney Smith Timko, certificated long-term substitute in kindergarten. And that is all I have this evening.
Thank you, Jenny.
And with that concludes my report. Mr. Naso?
Nice job.
Thank you.
That gets us to the consent calendar. And by the adoption, anything with an asterisk gets approved with one vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Duke.
Second.
Thank you, George. Any discussion? No? Can we have a vote?
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. With that, that brings us to Board of Education Other. I want to make a comment. I think anytime we have guests, like we have Polaris people, let's move that other to the front, because they shouldn't, I mean, we don't want to consume. They're nice enough to show up, and then we always make them wait to the end. It's like, it's so rude, you know? It's like, we got to like move them to the front, so.
So why don't we move that to after their presentation? Can we do that tonight?
Move what?
It's done with there.
We're done. We're there.
Board of Education, other?
Board of
Okay.
Education, yeah, we'll
Okay.
give them do the presentation. If we have others, we'll go to that.
Okay.
All right, with that, I'd like to introduce and welcome Bob Timmons, Superintendent of Polaris Career Center. I think they've got to do a little setup to get their presentation ready.
I'm assuming I have to stand here by this mic.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be hard because I don't do well in one spot.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come today to present about and discuss the partnership we have with Strongsville City Schools. So we've got a few people that I brought to help me out. Laura is setting up our information for you this evening. She is our marketing specialist that we have just recently hired, and some of what Cameron has shown you as far as the district's goals for Strongsville for communication, we've also realized that this is a major push for all school districts, the ability to communicate out to your parents, students, your community, what your district is working on. And also, Chris McCauley is with us tonight. He is going to take over on some of the slides, and he is our assistant superintendent. So as we get started, first I did want to thank you again, and I want to thank Mr. Micko, who is your representative on the Polaris board. And by all means, he has done a great job on your behalf for our board. He serves as our vice president on the Polaris board. And not only that, he is a true, has the career tech initiatives to heart and is really pushing that forward. So I thank you, Mr. Micko. So this evening we are here, wanted to give you a little bit of a update on Polaris Career Center. We try to do these with all of our associate districts every 3 to 5 years, and so this is one of our opportunities because we are now turning 40 years old.
Is it not moving? I can be fired as picture taker.
Or you can rent Mark.
We can save some money that way.
Thank you. So what we're looking at is we actually started in 1975. We started with Strongsville as one of our founding associate school districts. So this September will be our 40th year. We've had a lot of changes. Actually, when the district first started, we were called the Southwest Cuyahoga County Joint Vocational School District, which was quite a mouthful. And from that growth, we had 3 other school districts join that compact throughout the past 40 years. So currently we are at 6 school districts, all in this southwest corner of Cuyahoga County. A lot has changed. We were called vocational education at that point, and we have evolved to career technical education. Much of that change has also hit our curriculum. Our curriculum is very different. Our programs are very different. We are aligned with the market demands that are within this community. So our programs evolve from year to year. We have a lot of changes going on. Thank you. However, without a doubt, our first goal is and has been, we're all about jobs. That's our focus, that's our purpose, that's our passion. We help students find jobs and connect them to a career path so that they are able to earn a family-sustaining wage. Our programs evolve so that we can do that. We also talk about what's called the Polaris Advantage. We believe every student that comes to Polaris should come away with something more than a high school diploma, something that helps them in that workforce. Someday, everyone's going to have a job. And for that to happen, we look at something that gives that student an edge. So we've increased industry credentials. Industry certifications are in all of our programs. Those credentials are the first thing employers look for. Those credentials also provide a student the ability to move out of a community, out of the state. It's transferable. It helps that student wherever they go. They also, most of them, contain college credit. So students from Strongsville that are enrolled in our program, they can earn anywhere from 1 to 2 semesters of college credit in their career tech program before they graduate. Those are all advantages, things that we can provide that we've put into our program. The last little bullet is about adult education. We're going to talk briefly about adult education tonight, and that entity within our district is actually part of the Ohio Board of Regents. So adult education provides us an avenue to move high school students into the university system of Ohio in a very seamless manner. So we are looking at some of our partners, our higher education partners, everything from 4-year universities, 2-year universities, and then you'll see at the end Culinary Institute of America. We have some colleges, some institutions that are very specific on a trade. If you've been able to come to Polaris to enjoy some of the culinary treats that we have a great program and a lot of success in that area, along with a lot of our programs. But the Culinary Institute of America is a huge program for us. Graduates. A lot of graduates go into area businesses. Next month we'll be hosting a advisory council when Cameron talks about the business aspect. We have 350 business members that will be coming to our district that are working with our programs. Those businesses are crucial for us. That's our job, to help them fill a workforce. So these are some of the organizations that are in Strongsville that also work with us, and it's a great partnership that we've developed. So Chris is going to talk a little bit about adult education.
Okay, adult education,
very important part of Polaris, not just high school, but the adult population. We serve, on average, around 8,000 students every single year. 25% of our whole consortium is typically from Strongsville. When I say our consortium, that's our other 5 districts in our consortium of Strongsville. We are the second largest program in Cuyahoga County for adult ed, which we're very proud of that. We have 12 full-time training programs being welding, medical, various heavy trades. Very proud of those programs. Over 1,000 part-time and personal enrichment classes, several offered at Strongsville school buildings. We're out in most of your elementary buildings. We took over Able and your career or your community classes unbelievably, about 5-6 years ago. And we trained, and I just hit on that, so thank you. Okay, middle school and high school, this is the first year we're in middle schools. We are presently in Strongsville, in 2 other associate districts. Unbelievably, about 9-10 years ago, we had a total of about 900 students. We have a total almost 3,000 now. So we branched into, well, first of all, follow the presentation. We have 23 career technical programs, 15 satellite high school programs, and now with the middle school expansion, we've added almost 1,200 students. So very proud of that. Continue to grow. So growth has been huge for us. In 2007, we had a transition. I've been at Polaris for 19 years. It's hard to believe. It's gone by very quickly. In 2007, I was honored to become superintendent. So at that time, the board discussed different ways to reach out to our associate districts. We did not want to have a scenario where a student didn't want to come to a Polaris program because of the proximity to drive to our Millbrook Heights campus. That was a problem. So we went from an enrollment of 750 students in our high school to now reaching over 3,000, and we're on a trajectory to be at 4,000 to 5,000 within 2 years. That's a huge change for our district. Reaching more students, having more students enroll in a career tech program. That's our whole focus. That's what we're doing. So when you look at our current enrollment, this includes middle school classes, which we're thrilled that we were able to offer in conjunction with your district and your leadership, those classes here at Strongsville. It's a great step in the right direction. If we look at that, that's a 91% increase. Huge amount that we're reaching on a budget that we haven't increased in years, which we're going to talk about in a moment. The next one. So school enrollment from Strongsville. So in 2008, 2009, 270 students. We served 270 Strongsville students. Today, you're at 599. Within 1 year, we were able to almost double that number because of middle school programming and the ability to offer satellites here in your high school. It's a great start, and it's only going to grow. So 122% increase. Most of that has just been in the past year. So we want to talk about some of our students. We could be here for hours showcasing some of the Strongsville successes. We've pulled 2 of them because their career paths are kind of unique. The first one is Kelson Matthias. Kelson was at the top of his class in the Strongsville at that time in the percentage of your graduates, but he had a career path in mind. When he was first entering his high school environment, he knew he wanted to be a welding engineer. That's a pretty specific career, and to know that in high school is pretty amazing. So Kelson completed a majority of his academics at Strongsville, and in his junior year decided if he wanted to be a welding engineer, he probably should learn how to weld. So he came to Polaris in our welding program, completed that program with 2 years, graduated Strongsville, attended The Ohio State University, graduated in welding engineering, and is now working at Sunbury in Ohio, at America. Great example, great partnership. And then we have Megan Gorey. Megan came to us also in the class of 2005, but she chose Allied Health and Fitness. And what we find at Polaris also is this is a testing ground to see if this is the career you really want to do. Is this where you want to be? So Megan completed our program in Allied Health and Fitness, but what she also found is her love of speaking. And she participated in our student organizations and prepared speech at the state and national level. And she actually went to Ohio University in broadcast journalism and is currently the producer of Good Day Columbus. So if you go to Columbus during OSBA, you'll be able to tune in and see Megan. totally different paths, different directions, different decisions as they've moved through, but the end result is the same. Between the partnership of Strongsville and Polaris, these students are really excelling. So we want to talk about our future. We're moving ahead 40 years. We have been a building that was built during the energy crisis. We don't have insulation from one wall to the next, on the outside to the interior. We have a roof that has a roof on top of it that's starting to leak. After 40 years, buildings start to show 40 years of students coming in to work. So we asked the Ohio School Facility Commission to take a look at our building to see what we needed for a facility. They came back with recommendations to bring us up to a standard of schools in Ohio that cost a little under $31 million. That's the foundation for improving the facility at Middleburg Heights. And that's important to recognize because Polaris is much more than just a facility in Middleburg Heights. We're a philosophy and we're a programming that goes out to all of our associate districts. So really we're in every high school now and soon to be every middle school. So we're expanding facilities. You can see everything from HVAC, walls, repairs. As a board, you've been through this many, many times now looking at your buildings. It's the same type of format, structures that we have with facilities. So what we are looking at, the board approved, it's been over a year in the discussion mode and moving forward. On this November, we will be on the ballot for the first time in 31 years. I think that's pretty incredible to have any school district in the state of Ohio not on a levy for 31 years. We're asking for a 0.69 mil levy from our communities because we're in a critical need location. Our labs have deteriorated to a point where we need to improve our labs, improve our equipment so that your students from Strongsville can come to Polaris and our other associate districts, be trained on equipment that will help them move directly into their career or workplace. That key training is important. The other big piece to that is a strong Polaris helps a strong Strongsville. With us being strong and in good financial location with good equipment, we can offer programming to your students in your location and expand what we've already started here at Strongsville. So it's exciting times for us. We've got some things that we're going to pass around to you. This will hopefully be hitting your home also. It's a compass that has just been headed out to your district. It talks about the needs that we have in Polaris, some of the community awareness that's going on, some articles about our students, but also want to invite you to a coffee chat that we're hosting here at the library on October 1st. We've got some of those things up and coming. We've got some other Strongsville members that will be promoting what we do for them and with them through some of the businesses. Also, a short piece that talks about the needs that we have for the district, things with our levy concerns and kind of the snapshot on why we're moving in this direction. So it's exciting times in our district as it is in most schools in Northeast Ohio. We're thrilled to have this partnership of 40 years and we're thrilled to be working more closely with Strongsville as we've expanded our offerings to your students. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Mr. Micko as our rep and our board member.
Hey, Bob, I just want to compliment you and thank you on an excellent presentation. I appreciate the nice comments at the beginning. Do any of my fellow board members have any questions? So I think the presentation speaks for itself as far as the value of Polaris. As the Polaris board rep, every month I have the distinct honor and privilege to give the Polaris update, and I hope I convey how important it is, and I convey that I often say, and I like to say, Polaris may not be right for everyone, but it very well could be just right for you. And I always suggest that parents and students take a good hard look at the programs they offer. These are career-ready programs. This is construction trades. This is HVAC trades. This is high technology. We have a alternative energy program. We have a graphics design program. We have a business professionals program. You know, it used to be called administrative assistant. It's a lot more than that today. And Polaris has moved along with that technology. Computer networking program. All of these programs are career ready. They're in demand. And so we are on the ballot in November, and certainly nobody likes to pay more taxes, and certainly I don't like to ask for more taxes. But I kind of have a rubric that I like to go through if I'm going to stand up as an elected official and ask for more taxes, and that's three things. Is it reasonable? Is it needed? And can I assure the public that the money won't be wasted? It is reasonable. It is 0.69 mil. Every tax dollar, penny, dime, dollar is important, but it is reasonable from that standpoint. Polaris has not been on the ballot in 31 years. We don't intend to change that kind of record. The Polaris board is very critical on living within our means. It is reasonable. Is it needed? Before today's meeting, I went to the City of Strongsville's website and went to their economic development, and I pulled down their industrial commercial business directory. And it's not very scientific. I just went through the list and I looked at the names. Republic Anode Fabricators, PAMA Tool and Die, Sherwin-Williams, DeMag Plastic Corp., Durox, Wilhelm Roofing, Teletronics Communications, Roscoe Medical, Interior Automotive, Intralot, Pat Catans, Doris, Time Warner, Painters and Allied Trade Union, Honeywell International, Iron Mountain, Lumatex, Medical Technologies Systems Packaging, Swagelock High Level, Instrumentors, Eberhard Manufacturing, Cardinal Machine Company, Willow Tool and Machining Company, K&M Tool Machining Company, Foundation Software, and on and on. And these are just businesses in Strongsville. You can go to every business owner, every president of that company, and ask them. And one of their issues, if not their primary issue, is always qualified employees that know how to work and are ready to work. And we have those kinds of students in Strongsville. We have those kind of adults. Bob mentioned how important our adult ed program is. Those are the same kinds of programs that our high school has. And one of the things that I like about Polaris is it reacts to what the market needs. We don't have I always like to use this example, we don't have a florist program anymore. One time Polaris did have a horticultural program. We don't have it anymore. It's relevant, it's career ready, it's needed. It's the kind of investment that pays dividends. And the last one is can I assure the public the money won't be wasted? And I can sit here and assure the public the money won't be wasted. I really do enjoy being the Polaris rep. Bob knows it, Chris knows it, I think everyone knows it. But I will not go to sleep unless I can assure the public the money won't be wasted. So in conclusion, it's reasonable, it is needed, and your money won't be wasted. So thanks again, Bob. Thanks again, Chris. Thank you.
I'd also just like to say thank you to Bob, Chris, and Laura for being here and the support that you've given and continue and will give our district. It is truly exciting. Jenny and I have had the opportunity to go visit the various classrooms in the buildings, and the middle school program with the Project Lead the Way program that we have going on in 7th grade will expand to 8th grade, as well as the pre-engineering program at the high school. It's just been a great addition to the curricular offerings that we're able to provide, and we couldn't have done that without your help and support. So wanted to say thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for coming in and share that with us. Well, that brings us to other. Do we have any other? Make a note. Let's make some other up. Jenny, some other?
No other, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Executive session. Do we have a need for executive session?
Yes. Brief.
Brief. We'll have a brief
5 minutes.
executive session.
Legal matters before the board.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Duke.
Second.
Thank you, Jane. Any discussion? No? Take roll. George?
Sure. Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. All right, we'll enter an executive session at 8:15. We'll conclude at 8:20, and there'll be no public session afterwards. Do I have a motion? Oh, we don't take a motion to adjourn. Oh, happy Labor Day to everyone. And tomorrow is early release. I think there was a lot of, I think I got an email, I got a blast, there was a lot of communication
That's
going
right.
out today.
That was a good one.
It was a good, yeah.
And be safe, everybody be safe out there.